Welcome to How to Real Estate Podcast, a podcast to help you start, elevate, and catapult your real estate investing career. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any new podcast that we. All right, guys. Hi. Welcome to How to Real Estate. This is Jared,
and this is Jenna,
and This is a podcast designed to help you start, elevate, and catapult your real estate investing career. And today we are really excited to have these two this one power couple. Or two guests.
We're worth two power couples.
You're worth two power couples.
Yes.
That is very true. And so these couple. This couple.
Yep.
Words are a thing.
Again, we're worth two.
Words are a thing. This couple had started in real estate about 4 years ago, and I've known these guys almost from the get-go. Once they kind of started, we introduced their real estate at the same time, and they've been just killing it in short-term rentals. So much so that they actually started their own short-term rental management company, Home Havens. They've totally dedicated into this one niche, which is extremely smart to get rich in a niche. Lauren and Aaron, Havens with an S.
Havens with an S.
Havens with an S.
Like multiple safe places.
That's
right. You're looking on the phone.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're so happy to be here. We're a little bit honored.
Well, honored.
Yeah.
No, we're honored to have you guys. It's awesome. So, tell us a little bit. How did you guys get started in real estate? What were you doing kind of before? What's a little bit of your story?
I hated my job. That's good motivation.
Like other 84% of Americans.
Yes. So I was one of many that didn't enjoy my job. So this is like, I don't know. Maybe I'm starting back too far, but.
I was a baby.
Yes, when I was born.
When I was a fetus, see, there was.
No, I had a boss. 2 weeks into the job, he pulled me in and told me he regretted hiring me, and it didn't improve from that point on.
Sure.
But luckily, they found a way to lay me off, which I'm thrilled about. But I kept going back to real estate. My dad was at this point, he's retired, he was a commercial lender, so he was always looking at deals, he's always analyzing deals, both commercial and in development, and so I knew I wanted to do real estate. We got married, and we're like, hey, let's buy a house, and we didn't want to buy any house, we wanted to buy a trashed house and fix it up. That's the dream, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So miracle buy. It was like New Year's Day, so I think everybody else was either waking up from their hangovers or who knows what. But we got it under contract. It was a bank-owned property. The bank loved us. We looked good on paper. I had my nice W-2 job. Got that. And we turned it into a duplex. And
we did the highlight. We did all of the work ourselves.
Wow.
Not necessarily recommended.
Not recommended, guys.
But
how long did it take?
We learned a ton.
Finished the first unit. I guess both units took about a year.
Yeah, altogether it took about a year.
Which is ridiculous. And we showered at a college for 3 weeks.
Oh my
because
goodness.
we had both of our bathrooms gutted. Anyway, not super suggestible, but it definitely lit our fire. It takes a year to do a single rehab. We're like, hey, there's got to be a better way to do this.
So during that time, were you guys working full time, or were you dedicated to just doing that?
I was full time.
I was
You
as
were
well.
full time, yeah.
Wow.
So we were both working
full-time
full-time
jobs, and you had that full-time project
Mhm.
after work.
Yeah, definitely. And it was a lot of fun. Like, I still look back on those times. It was a lot of fun, a lot of plaster dust and, everything else when you're living in a house that you're remodeling. But
Yeah.
we learned a lot, and now we're glad we've done it in some aspects as well.
We learned a lot about each other.
We did. We learned how to work together, really, though, because we work together in our business now, and that's where we develop those skills, too. So maybe we do suggest it now that we can.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Couples that stay together remodel together.
I don't know if my marriage is that strong.
I'm not sure who's that.
Anyway, we'll speed this story up a little bit to
Sure.
how we got to the short-term rentals.
Yes,
So we dabbled with some other things, worked on some flips, knocked a lot of doors, played with some wholesales. We did wholesale some properties, and just kind of played that game. And then we had a property that came across Aaron's plate, and he said, "Hey, this is a really good deal, and I think it works as a long-term rental." And this was down in Hurricane, actually, just outside Zion National Park. And then he was like, "Hey, what about a short-term rental? How would it do? How do we pull comps?" And we're like, I don't know. So
They don't
I
exist.
honestly, like, I wish I could tell you every single step that we took before our first purchase. But I can't remember everything. We just kind of were like, "Hey, I think this is gonna work." We found a partner, we purchased the house, and when we were there, we actually saw the neighbor was selling as well, so we bought both of them on the same day. So
On the
again,
same day.
Wow.
I don't know if this is advisable, but we drove down there. We purchased 2 houses on the same day with a partner, with all of the stuff in our car to set it up. And we stayed there for 2 days, and we set up 2 short-term rentals, and we got back in our car and we drove up here, and that's how we learned to manage remotely. That was our start. So
Wow.
just really jump in, get your feet wet was our strategy.
So how
It
far
works.
away? How far away of a drive is
It's
that?
4 hours.
4 hours.
4 hours. So
Yeah.
if anything happened, you're 4 hours away.
Yeah,
We had a good cleaner.
Right,
we
right.
did. Well, we've learned that lesson too. We hired and fired cleaners down there as well. So yeah.
Wow. And so for your first nightly rental, how much did it cost to furnish it, or how did you furnish it?
Those we bought from the sweet old ladies. They were both named Vivian. Different
I know.
people,
Hmm.
but
I know.
they were just, and one was leaving because she wanted to be closer to family, and she didn't need her furniture. She left it. So they were the grandma special as far as short-term rentals go.
Okay.
So
And
can you tell like it was from an old grandma's?
So we
Place,
pieced
or
it
has
together. Some of them, yes, but
We
like
did our best.
the mattresses, the bed frames, we left a lot of it because a lot of it was fairly standard, and then we kind of tried to spruce and do what we did. I remember we spent $2,000. Was that for both units, or was
I think
that
that
for
was
one
each
unit?
unit. Yeah.
Each unit, so
Wow.
about $4,000
So
to
they
furnish.
they were cheap. We were scrappy. Not necessarily advisable. We don't do that at this point because
Right.
You're a different level. You know,
Yeah.
well, and we recognize most of that stuff we had to replace within the first year anyway,
Hmm.
which ends up being more time and more expensive than doing it right the first time. So
But what, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So you gotta
Amen.
jump in, and we still made money even though we had to replace things and.
What kinds
Whatever.
of things are you? Is it like?
Oh yeah. So sheets. Okay, you think
Oh,
about your
right.
sheets at home. I mean, really, how often do we all wash our sheets?
Wait, you're supposed to watch those?
Yeah,
Ooh.
right? Like what? Really? White pillowcases aren't supposed to be like tinged? No.
Yeah. But it's naturally change colors. Isn't that kind of a thing?
It's
Yeah,
like an
but
umber
if you
thing.
have if you have in a single unit, you have somewhere about 12 cleanings a month in these units. You're washing sheets 12 times a month, and then you do that
Wow.
for a year, they just don't hold up. And so
Right.
you're replacing sheets after like 3 or 4 months. Whereas now we've learned, we've tried so many different kinds of sheets and products to find the stuff where you only have to buy it once, which you can find on a list on our website.
Oh,
We'll plug
nice.
if
I was just
any
gonna
leaders
ask.
out there.
I'm like, what is
You
the
do
secret
not
list?
have to make the same mistakes we did. So we have all that up, and we'll link that in the show notes as well. But yeah, so there's definitely some costs associated with doing it wrong the first time.
Mm-hmm.
But wrong is interesting because we still cash flowed and we learned a skill, and now we have a management company. So.
doing it is better than not doing it.
Amen.
Right.
Yeah.
So true.
Also wash your sheets.
Yes,
Yeah,
Jared.
my wife is like killing me. We watched her. I can just see her watching this and just smacking me around.
Like there's still things we don't know how to do, but we do them, and we figure out how to do them.
So you don't let fear or the unknown take
Right.
you guys out of that.
No,
Yeah.
not for
Or
more
stop
than a
them from doing-
second. It's totally natural to feel the fear. You just have to,
Mhm.
we powwow and we get over it, and then we try again.
Well, yeah, because that's a big step, buying a short-term rental when you've never done it, or 2, and then it turned out to be 2
Yeah.
and 4 hours away.
Yeah.
You know, because when you're first getting into it, you're thinking, well, I'm the one that's going to have to go do those
Yeah.
things. That's what I would
Right.
think. You know, if you're first starting doing that, so for 4 hours away and it's your first time, kudos to you on 2 houses.
Oh, well,
We
thank
didn't
you.
know what we didn't know, but we learned a ton when we did it.
Yeah.
So
Anyway, we started adding units very quickly after that. We saw that those were working even with their flaws and our flaws, that's what I should say. But we saw that they were working, and so we continued adding units with partners, worked on some that we didn't own, and we can kind of go into that in a few minutes, how you can get into short-term rentals without owning property or having partners to a certain extent.
Sure.
So we got into that. We started adding units so quickly that we either needed a really great management company, and that's what we thought. And I'll give you the second option in a second. We tried so many of them. So we either had consultations or were almost to the point of signing contracts with 6 different management companies, and they weren't even doing what we were doing in terms of pricing, marketing, and things like that. And we're like, well, we don't want to do worse and pay for it? No way.
Yeah.
And so we said, okay, we made a hard decision. We pivoted and we said, okay, we need to build our own management company to be able to outsource some of the tasks of our own units.
That's awesome.
And so then we started managing for others, and it's all snowballed from there, and now we're at today.
How many units do you manage altogether?
You know, it depends how you count, and my honest answer is I don't know. If you count ones with contracts signed, I'd have to count them off around 20-ish. If you count ones that are being built, being furnished right now, we have 2 that are being furnished as we speak tonight. I don't know, maybe 40 that are being built, and
Wow.
we have contracts out on but aren't started yet.
Yeah.
So growing quickly, always looking to grow more, and obviously just like anything, contracts fall through. We know that in real estate.
Yep.
Jenna is nodding.
Wait. You mean sometimes contracts doesn't happen? What do you mean? What's going on?
But we just take it one step at a time. We're open about where we are in our growth, and we're loving it. We're doing great.
So would you prefer, what do you guys prefer, having your own management, or excuse me, is it nicer to manage the property or to actually own the property and manage, or what is this kind of nice, like, okay, here's just added income, I have to do more work,
So-
my question makes sense.
are you saying, is it better to manage or is it better to own and manage?
Right. Yes.
It all depends.
Aaron will tell you that control is the name of the game.
So I have a philosophy that money is made through control, and good money is made through adding value. And so, like, you can be a horrible landlord and still make money.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody likes you, you don't like yourself, like, that's fine. But you have control. You own the unit, you control it. But if you are a nice landlord and you add value to your guests, maybe you add amenities, maybe you add things that free parking, like you make them happy, you add value, you do something that's impactful to their lives, then they'll stay with you. And like they stay with you, like then you don't have vacancy. If you don't have vacancy, that's a big deal. Like that increases, like you increase $100 a month on your rent, that's $1,200 a year. Like as a cap rate at 10%, that's $12,000 when you resell it. Like that's a big deal. Like,
right.
And you do that for all your tenants. If you have 100 tenants, you raise their rents $100. Like
Adds up pretty quick.
it adds up quick. That's $100,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's $1 million on your cap rate. If it's a 10% cap rate, like most apartments are 5 in Utah.
Right.
So.
So setting up a nightly rental. So let's just say they've heard of nightly rentals is really lucrative, and they don't really know what they need to set everything up. Like what kind of things we talked about, sheets, and what other things does a nightly rental have to be successful?
Okay, I'm gonna give some tips out there for even some of the operators that operate nightly rentals or short-term rentals out there. So little things that make a massive difference. Black mugs for coffee, because coffee will eventually stain any other color. And these are things, some of them you can pick up from hotels. Most hotels in Park City have black mugs. So it's these little things you start picking up where you're like, that shouldn't make a difference. Whether I buy a black mug or a white mug and I'm setting up a unit, it shouldn't make a difference. The biggest things is you want to buy quality products. And if you don't know how, go when you're doing your shopping, go with people that know how. It should take a long time to furnish your first unit. I guess I should say you should spend a lot of time on it. You can spend lots of time in a single day on a single task. But you want to make sure you're putting in quality products. And I would say, kind of a negotiable, you have to have stayed in a short-term rental unit. If you've never done that, that's probably your first step in research to see what you like, what you don't like. If you've stayed at hotels, you can probably understand, but most have kitchens, have all the kitchen supplies that you would need. Make it nice because it's like Erin said, it's the value proposition. If you are making a really nice unit that's fun and people feel good there, they want to be there, it's clean, then you will be rewarded monetarily for that.
Yeah. Mm.
Nice tip. The mugs.
Yeah,
I didn't even think
that's
about
okay.
that. I was thinking, well, why
mugs.
not white? They look cleaner.
And that's so
But,
weird.
Yeah.
So white sheets, bedding, pillowcases, all of that is the easiest to keep clean. So you can go into a hotel and you're like, oh, white, yes, I know it's clean. It is the easiest because you can bleach anything. But
But
gray.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. We learned the hard way too. White towels, because a lot of people have retinoid cream they put on their face either for acne or for wrinkles, which covers most of the population, let's be honest. And it bleaches all colored towels. So all of your towels are ruined
Wow.
within a couple of months.
If they're not white.
Fascinating.
So
You
all,
still-
all
you
your
still get
towels
the
are everything's
makeup.
white.
Everything's white.
Yeah, that's. I mean,
All makeup.
But
But it's so much cheaper
you
to
battle
replace for
that.
that.
Yeah,
you
you
do
battle
battle that, but
you
Not
pick your
too bad.
battles.
But they
Yeah,
know
pick
their
your
they
battles.
know their towels are clean,
Right.
or that the last person used makeup, which isn't because you throw those towels out.
so I guess those are some things as far as setting up a unit, what to put in a unit. And we do have that list on our website. It's
Yeah.
free access. Go
A
click the
plunger.
links. A plunger.
Plunger.
That
You
makes
need
for an
that.
awkward conversation if there's not one.
Easy to forget. That was yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like you had some personal experience with
Yeah,
that.
I won't share any stories.
We've never forgot a plunger.
No, we haven't.
No.
I would say that we've been somewhere and been plungerless.
Ah.
And so these, you guys were talking about buying versus not having them under your
Yeah.
name, right? So how are you guys acquiring these rentals?
We buy some. We partner with people to buy some with us. We manage some. And then we can also, we do lease options or master leases, which is where it's a very common practice among commercial buildings. You lease a property, but have the ability to control the property and release the property as a sublease to someone else. And so, like for example, if you are you have an apartment complex near like a hospital, you can go to the property managers or the owners of the apartment and be like, hey, I want to provide housing to families staying at the hospital. And you create the amenities for that. Maybe you want grab bars near the shower. Maybe you want a really comfortable bed if they're in and out of treatments, but maybe they're traveling from another state, like Utah, for example. Like we have really good cancer research. We have really good research hospitals, medical research, heart research, surgeries, all of that. And so like they come here, they may be staying for a week, they may be staying for a month to get different treatments, to be tested out. And a hotel may not be able to accommodate all of those needs. A kitchen will save them cost on food, a nice bed, they'll be able to feel cozy. Whereas like a hotel, you feel like you're staying in someone else's place. And so, anyway, the sublease. so I got distracted. So the property manager allows in your contract to allow you to sublet it to other individuals. And so you provide the furniture, you provide the accommodations, you provide the marketing to get those people there, and then they have a good place to stay. And it creates another, we're adding value. The property managers love us because they have 0% vacancy. The hospital people love us because they have a place to stay that's not a hotel. That's cleaner, saves them more money, is more
Allows them to live
casual.
life.
Yeah, they can live their life. and like you make a little money for adding that value to them, as well as the owners of the apartment love you because you're taking good care of that unit, because that's your paycheck as well. Like if there's a leaky faucet, if there's a bad water heater, if there's a stain in the carpet, like you'll hear about it, and often it's not in the way you wish you did. Sometimes you're like, how in the world did that happen?
Yeah,
But
I bet.
and so yeah, it's a value proposition. You make everybody happy because you're adding value.
Have you had you offered like, hey, we want to release this out to someone else as well? Have you had people just turn you like, oh, I don't want any of that business, or has most people been pretty open to it?
Yeah. So there are some strategies to getting people to open up that conversation.
Do tell.
Yes. A lot of property managers, landlord figures have a really bad taste in their mouth about the word Airbnb. Because when it first came out, it wasn't popular. When it first got popular, people were doing it even though it was contrary to their contract. And so renters were saying, oh, I have an extra bedroom. Okay, I'm just going to have somebody in. And then property management company or landlord doesn't know because they're not there every day. Even a good landlord isn't. And then they come in and they're like, hey, what's going on? Like, I'm liable for this. You're running a business out of my property and I don't know. As well as you have extra people, extra utilities, like all of these things. And so most of them that have a bad taste in their mouth had that experience and really want nothing to do with it. So one of the biggest favors you can do is use the right language. And again, and I'm not going to correct anyone that I ever talk to about it, but I'm telling you, if you want to make it far in this industry, you need to refer to it as vacation rentals if you're in more of a vacation rental destination, or short-term rentals if you're more of like a cityscape, business traveler, hospital stay kind of place. Just because nightly rentals kind of sounds like ladies of the night. Sounds a little bit sketchier,
Sure.
if you will. Airbnbs is attached to that word, which is so positive for so many people, but it's sad that it is negative for a lot of those who are in an ownership or landlord position within real estate. And if you just walk up to somebody and say, hey, I want a master lease, they say, what? I don't understand. So you have to represent yourself well. I guess what's our best experience as far as how somebody could go to a property owner or who's renting their property and say, hey, I want to do this here? What would you say, Aaron?
I think the biggest thing is education.
Yeah.
Like helping them recognize what they're
That you know what
actually
you're
doing.
talking
the
about.
the value proposition. You're giving them value. Like 0% occupancy. I'll fill all your units. Like if you have 10, I can fill all 10. Like if you don't have that money right now to start 10, you start with the one and be like, hey, we will move into all of them. Like every time you have a vacancy, we can move in, as well as we're going to take care of these better than you will.
Right.
There are some scripts in the industry. One of them that's very popular, Jay Massey's put together, and so that one basically is my company and I are looking to fill a number of apartments in the area. Who should I talk to about that? So you call and you say that statement. You look bigger than yourself because now you're a company, and then you're qualifying the individual on the other side of the phone because you're asking them if that's the right person to talk to. So that's a strategy that a lot of people have seen success with. Aaron and I are very much come from a more laid back, not that we don't do that or things similar to that, but really we have a different conversation with everyone we talk to. So if you're just like, hey, I want to pick up the phone, I don't know what to say, try that sentence, and then from there, list all the positives of what you're going to do. Say, hey, we're going to have business travelers stay here while they're working down the street, and then we may have several different people as they come in and out for business meetings throughout the month. The property will be cleaned regularly. Start listing 0 vacancy, all of those things that make short-term rentals amazing for the property owner.
And this isn't a new idea.
No.
Right.
If you're in summer sales, there's corporate leases. You're moving a whole team. Summer sales, they're going to Texas. They're going to sell cable TV or satellite TV or pest control. The whole team goes. That's a corporate lease. The company is paying for their rent. Like interns, they're traveling around whoever. They're bringing in 20 interns for the summer. They need these people.
Missionary housing is one that people are very familiar with.
Hmm.
There's different people in and out of missionary opportunities, all no matter where you are, what you're doing. Service opportunities, you bring people in and out. So it is a very familiar concept if you speak about it in those terms, as opposed to, I'm going to run an Airbnb out of your property.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Jen is like, no.
Yeah, I don't think so. That's what you get.
And I can relate to that because like I do a lot of deals with seller financing, and one of the tricks, I never say the word seller and financing together.
Yeah.
Ever. Whether it's creative financing or if we'll just doing payments or want to pay less taxes or more taxes or whatever it is, like there's a lot of different ways. So that makes sense how wordsmithing really makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and it's helping them understand it in terms that
Right.
they understand. Because, yeah, everybody's gonna understand it negatively if you tell them it negatively. Like, guess what? I'm gonna put strangers in your place. Some of them could be not legit. Like, who knows? Like,
They're probably drunk all the time.
like, and I'm just gonna make buckets of money on this. It'll be great. Let's do it.
Let's just take a second though.
That's such a sound bit right there.
I know, yes.
For those of you that aren't familiar with why you would want to do this in general, that's something we haven't even talked about. I'm embarrassed to say that. But so the idea of a corporate lease that is so exciting is that you don't have to own the property. Your money in would be furnishing the property if it's not already furnished. If you corporate leased a property that was already furnished, your money in to a cash flowing property would be your first and last month's rent or whatever the landlord charges you, which you may be even to negotiate. So you could be very low in and getting rental income that so many people say, oh, you have to wholesale first. Oh, you have to make your buckets of money before you get the passive income. So it's kind of a way around that.
Yeah.
And I would say everyone wants to know numbers. So here's the numbers.
Mhm.
In Salt Lake, if you are doing a corporate lease well on a small property, like on a 2-1, what do you think you're averaging?
Double
Cash
rents.
flow. Yeah, so
Yeah.
double rent.
So double rents with expenses, you're making the rent back. So if it's a $1,000 lease, you could make $1,000
a month.
That's pretty good.
Doing
That's
it,
pretty good.
That's
doing
pretty
it,
good.
right. And if you set up a unit well for like 10 grand, like your payback is less than a year, which is a phenomenal ROI.
Yeah. Now, how much? So, would you say like doing it right? 'Cause the first couple of years was only 2,000 each, but you didn't do it right, as you said, right? So,
Yeah.
so would 10,000 on an average square foot of 2,000 feet? What would be like? How much money do I have to come? I mean, other than the first and last month's rent, what?
Oh, how much
money?
to furnish?
Yeah, to furnish
Yeah.
and everything.
So I would calculate, it's gonna vary a little bit if you're doing it yourself, if it's your first time, if you're doing all the setup yourself, if you're having a company do it for you. I would say that you can do a great job furnishing a very empty place, like nothing in it, nothing in the cabinets, at what, $10.50 a square foot, $10.25 a square foot.
Yeah.
And that might sound crazy, but there are some expensive things you're putting in there.
Mhm.
If you're really going all out and doing it right and you really want to make that $1,000 a month, you're putting smart locks on there with all of the bells and whistles. You're putting your own camera on the front door so you can monitor guests. There's no parties that way. You know when people are coming and going. You can charge for late checkout, all of the gems.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'd say about $10.25 to $10.50 a square foot if you're doing a really good job and you're keeping your costs down. You could probably get it lower than that if you're playing with used furniture, which is a little bit risky.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. I'm telling you, everyone does it differently. If your demographic's not ours, then I want to tell you what it costs.
Yeah.
There are those out there. There's others in the industry that say factor in $25 a square foot, and that would include your first and last month's rent and any expenses to get it set up. That would be for somebody else to set it up for you with all the bells and whistles, professional designer, all of that. We also do design services. We're cheaper than $25 a square foot, but you have to get a bid from us. But we're happy to do that as well. And again, the important thing is doing it right. But at the same time, more important than that is doing it.
Is
So
doing it, yeah. Because, like, you may not know the exact. So, Lauren, my beautiful wife here, she is crazy about fabric content. So she knows what will pill, like, you know, you buy that sweater and you're like, this is a fun sweater, and then you wash it twice and you're like, wow, it looks like it's falling apart.
Yeah.
Like it's peeling, it has those
Little
little nasty
balls.
things, and then everything else is like, oh, I'm gonna stick to you, and so then you have yesterday's hair on it, and it's gross. But she knows all of that stuff. She's like, oh, we need fabric content that's this and this, and da 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 da. And yesterday she was bragging she knew more than clothing designers about that.
Okay, this is my joke. It's really good, so I'll tell you. Clothing designers know how to care for fabric. You know those little tags on the inside of your clothes that tell you
Yeah.
what you should do with your clothes and you don't?
Yeah.
Clothing
Like,
designers
I don't
will
look
say, so they can touch your fabric and say, oh yeah, this needs to be washed on cold and line dry and all of that. And I can tell you what will happen if you don't do that to that fabric. It will shrink and this and that. That's why I'm saying I know more about clothing designers, because I'll tell you what will happen if you treat it poorly.
Oh.
Yeah. So anyway, she knows exactly what sheets to buy. She knows exactly like rugs and all of the fabric curtains, like so that it'll both last and look good. It won't look like a piece of plastic on your wall, and it won't fall apart. Like the first small child that comes and grabs it with their peanut butter and jelly hands, it's not ruined, kind of a thing.
Sure.
So like you have to have the whole spectrum. Like you have no idea who's in there. It could be the 3-year-old, and it could be the 16-year-old that's rocking
Smoking a
out
doobie.
with their friends. Yeah. And
No smoking in our units, but if they do, get an ozone machine.
ozone machines are great.
You can get any smoke out with those, man.
And Zep,
And
the
Zep.
chemical cleaner Zep.
So, how do you decide which area to put a nightly rental or a vacation rental? I should put it.
Okay.
A short-term rental.
Short-term rental.
Like how do you
What-
determine whether it's a good one or not? Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Downtown or just out in the boonies, or where would be the ideal spot?
So
All of the above.
yeah, I know. The general question is, who do you want to host? So if you are like, hey, I have no steps into my apartment, you could roll right in with a wheelchair, and you're right by a hospital, then even if you're out in the boonies, you're gonna get business. If you're set up for that. If you have 5 steps up to your house and you're 2 blocks from a hospital and you say, hey, I want to host hospital guests, you may not do very well. So it depends who you want to serve. And you can kind of serve wider swaths of population, if you will, like hospital travelers and business travelers and small families. You could realistically accommodate for all of those things at the same time. So as far as areas, think about who you want to serve. I would say the highest paying customer types are hospital stays, vacationers, and business travelers. Those are the people that are most frequently in units. If you want to run a unit in West Valley, hats off to you, but at the same time, you are going to host people who got kicked out of their house or broken up with.
So, describe to the viewers of West Valley. What would you?
Oh,
Because there's
yes.
a lot of people not from Utah even listening too. So.
Perfect. Okay, so West Valley is like, I don't know. I'm from Reno, so I feel like my slums are more slummy, but just
The rougher side. So
I
it's
know,
rougher
rougher
side.
side,
Okay,
yeah,
sure.
and it's really
Sure.
not that bad.
Right,
But
right.
It's not at
no,
all.
It gets
it's
a bad
really
rap.
not.
It's
It
better than
does.
Ogden.
Yeah, I would say probably.
Yeah.
we're gonna lose a lot of viewers.
I know.
I know, guys, as we insult every different place.
Let's see. Let's go down.
Well,
there.
it's
What's
not as
big
bad
insult?
as-
Let's see.
Yeah, okay, well I was gonna just tell you all the hot areas in Utah, but now I'm like, oh maybe I shouldn't.
Well, so like we have places in suburbia that
Yeah.
are killing it, and things that we never even thought. So we're managing them. We told them, hey, we don't think this will do well, and you cannot predict why someone will stay in your unit. So you can try. You can be right next to a hospital, but they may be staying because the stadium is 5 miles or 20 miles down the road, and all of those units were filled up, and yours was the only one available. Like you can't really predict. Like we're right next to an oil refinery. We have a place right next to an oil refinery. We get engineers.
It sleeps 8 people, and we get 1 person there all the time.
Engineers
Wow.
traveling
Never would've
for 3 weeks working at the oil refinery, and he's willing to pay it. It's a nice, clean place, and it's like, yeah, like you have cable and a place to put my muddy boots. Like it's great. Like, and so we didn't foresee that. We thought that one is in Bountiful, Utah. It's 20 minutes from Salt Lake, but it's not in Salt Lake. But we get residual from Salt Lake, and we get engineers staying at the oil refinery, and it's
Mhm.
like right on. Like we never thought that would be a thing.
That's awesome.
I guess with my West Valley comment, this is what you should draw from it.
Now that she's
Yeah.
thought about it.
Now that I've thought about it, and I can
Backpedal.
get a better image on this. What you should do is just like don't be cheap. Like when you're talking about your furnishings, when you're talking about your units, because if you go for the very lowest dollar place where you could pay monthly to be able to run your business out of that property as a corporate lease, then your quality of guests will be a little bit lower. And your cash flow might suffer a little bit. I think still you could cash flow if you're doing the right things, do a good job of being decent, if you're adding value. But if you chose somewhere that was maybe a little bit more expensive, a little bit more updated, a little nicer, it's easier to maintain, it's going to be less effort on your side for that. And when you're talking on such a low in strategy for cash flow, you could do an extra $200 a month. I'm telling you, you really can, because you'll make it back plus more. So I guess that's what I'm saying is,
Sure.
if you don't want to deal with the very lowest low of a market, then don't have that housing and expect to be dealing with the highest of the high. It's like your Target, Walmart, Nordstrom market. You got to think about those. You don't want a Walmart place if you are more of a Target person and that's who you know.
So Walmart being a little bit more in the lower end of scales, you
Yeah.
know, and then the
Well, like quite
Target kind of
literally,
middle.
where do you shop?
Right.
If you always shop at Target and you're like Walmart kind of grosses you out a little bit, if you choose a unit in the very cheapest area, and those people are staying there because it's the cheapest option available for staying in a short-term rental, you might not relate, and that makes it harder to host. It makes it harder to get good reviews. It makes it harder to get the cash flow you want.
So
And day to day, you won't enjoy interacting with those people.
the biggest thing we have found for keeping high reviews is setting and keeping expectations. Because like people are taking a risk when they come and stay at a unit they've never seen. They're trusting that your pictures are accurate. But if they come, they don't see accurate pictures. They were expecting like the Taj Mahal and it's a trailer behind a garbage can. Like they're gonna be ticked.
So you're saying I shouldn't Photoshop the pictures then?
No.
No, but if you are
but it-
renting a trailer behind a garbage can, if it's accurately, we have seen it. I'm not going to promise anything to anyone, but we've seen it. Aaron had a friend.
Okay.
We had a friend who, I'll tell the story.
Unfurnished unit, nothing in there, air mattresses.
Toilet paper.
His
That's
listing said there is nothing in this unit. We have air mattresses and toilet paper. He made money on that unit.
Which
Wow.
some platforms won't let you do anymore, but it's an exercise in telling and being extremely honest with people. This is what
Wow.
it is. We actually have a lot of units that are up down duplexes, and there's people walking above them, and we are just brutally honest with them. You may hear footfalls, you may hear TV noise, you may hear kids, and they're willing to do it because they know, and then they go in and they're not appalled because
Right.
we have made it explicitly clear that that's what it is, and they chose to book. And we've been able to maintain crazy high reviews with places that have caveats.
Now, is it so? You guys are super hosts, I'm assuming, right? Or
Yeah.
what is a super
2
host for
times
those?
over.
2
Oh, I don't know
times.
how many times. How many
If we had
accounts, how many
suspenders, there would be like
times.
2 times over.
Here's flexing over here. Sorry, what did you ask about Superhost?
So what is a super host?
So a Superhost hosts a certain amount of stays every either 3 months or a year. There's markers for each and maintains a rating of 4.8 or higher with a certain response rate and no cancellations. That's
Wow.
long.
And no cancellations.
No cancellations. It's steep.
Mm.
Oh, so you can't cancel, or the
I
tenants?
can't cancel.
Oh, you can.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They can
So
They
cancel.
can cancel. And that's a trick too.
Oh.
If you ever need to cancel, try to get them to
You
cancel.
just ask them to cancel.
Yeah.
Hey, the unit's not available. You're going to need to find another. Please cancel. You'll get a full refund.
Ta-da!
If I-
Superhost status!
if I didn't know that was a thing, like someone was mentioning me like that,
Uh-huh.
okay, yeah, I guess I'll go cancel.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even think about it. Like,
All
oh,
the
okay.
little
Yeah,
nuggets.
and that'll tank your SEO. You'll
Yeah.
never get a booking again.
Yeah.
You will, but
You will. You still do good. But
And so what's the minimum nights that you think, because you do have to pay for cleaning and things like that.
Mhm.
So what's the minimum night do you do nightly rentals or is
we
it
do.
Really?
So most of our properties, I would say we offer one night stay.
Mm.
I thought you were going to say stand for a second there, but yeah, sorry.
Man.
These are not
These
nights.
are
It's
not
not
nightly
like
rentals. Short-term rentals and vacations. Okay, times in which it would be more beneficial to offer or to set a minimum of like 3 days or something like that is actually slow season, because then you're guaranteeing the booking for multiple nights. So you might be the lowest or a lower price per night as opposed to the others listed on the platform. But if they're staying for 3 days, then you get their business for 3 days. So
Mhm.
slower seasons, extend it. If you are in a place that's like vacation central, for example, Bear Lake. For those of you not in Utah, Bear Lake, there's really
Resort
nothing
town.
up there
Just a
except a
lake.
resort.
Uh-huh.
There's a lake, and you go up there with your whole family, and you go play in the lake for a week. But it's like an hour from the nearest like town. Really, there's like one gas station, one tiny grocery store, one restaurant. So if you're going up there, you're going up there for a while in most cases. So that you might want to do a 5-day minimum, because you know the average guest is up there for a week, and then you get all your Wednesdays filled. Whereas you might just only get the weekends filled if you didn't have that.
Is that what you see mostly when it's just by night, that it's only like the weekends, like kind of sandwiched in the middle of the week is nothing?
In
Or
a very vacation heavy area. That's why I use Bear Lake as an example.
got you.
If you're in an area where there's hubbub no matter what time, anywhere near like a city, if you're near any sort of international airport, you can do it by night and be fine. And then another thing is think about your business strategy. If you're cleaning your own unit, so many people when they hop into real estate, they say, oh, if I only had like a little bitty side hustle that I could just make, you know, $1,000 a month, then I could get by and do my dream. And that's one of the things I really like about short-term rentals. If you are willing to learn, or you are an excellent cleaner, you could clean your own unit and make that money.
Keep that money.
Yeah, as you are growing.
Just
To
make
allow you
sure
to
that
grow.
you don't have to clean to
Just
make
make sure
money.
you don't have to clean to make money.
'Cause
That's not going to work.
That leads to burnout.
Yeah.
We see that a lot.
I mean, as in not getting the cleaning person, but you yourself going out there and cleaning up
Yeah.
everything.
So if you are running a unit and you're like, I will only be profitable this month if I clean, you need to change your strategy, because that's a cleaning business. That's my real estate business.
Mm.
And you burn out, and then they come to us and they're like, can you just take care of this? Just fix this for us. And we're like, you're not making money. Like
So 80% of listings on Airbnb as a platform churn every year, meaning
burnout.
80% of them disappear and are replaced by newbies because they're running their own property 100%. They have no software. They have no help. They're messaging people all hours of the day. Late at night, they're cleaning their own unit. They can never go on a vacation, and they burn out in a year. So,
No idea.
That
Don't be
leads,
your own
I was
cleaner.
gonna say that leads me to the other question. What are the perks of using a
Yeah.
management company?
You get a side
Yeah.
hustle if you want to clean.
Yeah.
Just don't burn
I
out.
don't know. I'm such a DIYer, especially when I'm getting into something, because I want to know exactly how it works. I just want to make sure everyone knows that side of it and that it's available. Perks of a management company: you can go on vacation. It's a lot like a long-term rental management company, but you're enjoying the benefits of the short-term rental. You know, take your rent and double it. So there's a lot of benefits. There's somebody there running it. All of the messaging is done for you. All the cleanings are coordinated for you. And every management company is different. I'm sure has a different product offering to a certain extent. But I actually just approved all the payouts today for this month or this last month. And most of our people were making, most of the owners that we managed for were making double long-term rents, like without our fee, after we took out our fee.
Wow.
Benefits of a management company are they know the ropes. They won't cancel on people, Jared. They know the ropes, and they can do it better even if you've been at it for 2 years. Like, we work with local businesses to get private stays, and you can only really do that well if you have a surplus of properties. If you have a single property and you send an email out to 10 businesses saying like, hey, we're happy to host business travelers, and one calls you back, if the second calls you back and says, hey, can I book, and you can't book them, they'll never call you back again. And you wasted all that effort. So there's some things that kind of just magnify the more you can. So if you want to run a bunch of your own units, there's more profitability in the more that you run, as well as you just tap into that when you sign up with a property management company.
And what's the average fees? Like, I know, like, for a standard monthly rental or yearly rental, on average is about 10% of management fees, but I'm assuming that because there's more to it in a vacation rental, what
It
are
is
like the
higher.
average
So averages are hard.
I've seen as high as 45%.
just to manage
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Painful.
Holy crap.
Well, no, was there a 50?
There was a 55 in
There
Park
was a
City.
55.
Park City is a very
Park City,
vacation
Utah.
heavy. Sundance film
There was a
is there.
55. We've seen
As low as 10, but they
as
will
low as
only
10.
like write your listing and put your pictures up. They won't reply to any messages. It should be a one-time fee, but it's 10% of every month.
They're not a
What a
value
steal!
add.
Yeah.
They're not a
Um,
value add.
But as far as what you should be experiencing as far as pricing goes, I would say between
20-25% is
20-25% is pretty good.
yeah, it depends on the type of property. Like a nice multi-mansion, you would be looking at 35-40%. If you're looking at like a quick turn type place in the city, you may be able to get lower. There's more competition because there's a lot more effort in that big unit.
Sure.
You have more liability. You have more outside marketing. You don't want to just stick that up on Airbnb and say, hey, there's a rave place you could come stay at. But at the
free glow sticks.
yeah, but you would want to make sure that you're getting like high quality, like wedding guests and corporate retreats and like high dollar individuals, movie stars, athletes coming, that kind of a thing. So
Wow.
you would have to do that marketing. You have to get in touch with those
So
agents.
do you guys change your prices depending on, so if it's like a bigger property, you'll so what is, if you don't mind me asking, what are yours, what are
No.
your ranges, I should say?
Completely transparent with it. We charge 20% of the gross monthly revenue.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll already talk about
She's just double checking.
I do the numbers.
I know. I hate those 3 word, like ROI, like all those, they just get confusing to me. I start mixing with like AM, PM, and all
Just
of those things to double match.
We're going to talk in acronyms the remainder of this.
Yeah.
LOL, and then I work with some teenage girls, so I get those mixed in. They look like an idiot. Telling them about my ROI.
What's
Anyway.
the LOL on this property?
I know. Okay, sorry, we got way off. Okay, so we charge 20% of gross monthly revenue, and then we do all of the supplies under a supply guarantee, which is super cool. So we're the only ones that I've ever heard of that do this. So we charge $10 per person that the unit sleeps, and I'll explain that because that's confusing. If your unit sleeps 6 people, we charge you $60 a month. We handle all of the toilet paper buying, shampoo, conditioner, dish soap, salt, pepper, all the things that you have to include. You have to, if you're setting up a brand new unit, you do have to put in like the first batch of things, and unless you have us setting up for you, then we cover that for you. But then all of the reusables and disposables, reusables being like sheets, pillows, pillowcases, things that you wash and reuse, we insure essentially for you. So for that $60 a month, if somebody walks off with your nice memory foam pillow, we replace it, we coordinate it, we get it there the same day, we pay for it. And so that ends up being
That's
a
our value
huge,
add.
that's our
Yeah,
value
that's a
add.
huge value add, yeah.
So we have one of the lowest at 20%, one of the lowest percentage charges. We actually have one of the lower supply charges, but the way we're able to do it, we're able to offer that supply guarantee, which is pretty darn cool. So we love that.
I've worked in insurance. I know risk management.
I know, which is the only reason why we're able to do this. How many people have a risk analyst, statistician on their team where they're able to do that? But
Yeah.
so that's what we charge. Others in the area, there are some that charge 25%. I can think of a couple of companies. And then also look at your add-ons too, because I saw one yesterday actually I was talking to, and they charge 18%, but their supply fee is super high. So it's kind of like, renting a car where you just kind of add on the fees. So look for those things as well. Shop property management companies. I'm not telling you to go with us. I'm telling you to make a wise decision.
Sure.
Yeah, do your research.
Yeah, do your
We're
research.
really good though.
Sure, they listen to the podcast, they did the research, they're good, let's go.
Yeah. No, and we're open books. We'll always talk to people about
Yeah,
it.
even
so.
if you just have questions in the industry, like feel free to reach out to us. We try to be very available in that way. with our time, we try to be able to answer questions, to be able to reach out to those that are new in the industry and have questions. Do your research, but ask questions, please.
So I have a question, I guess, about about furnishing the property. I know there's places out there where you can just rent furniture.
Yeah.
And the rent-to-own, or just renting just in general. Have you guys looked into that? Is that even a viable
we've
option?
looked at it. It's not super cost effective from what we've been able to find, and you could maybe structure something that works. We haven't been able to find one that works for us, but that's not to say it's not possible. Or
Sure.
maybe you rent it from Aunt Betty. She forks over 10 grand so that you can buy furniture, and then you rent to own from her. Like that's definitely a possibility. It's limitless. Like,
Right.
hey, Aunt Betty, you wanna invest in my new business? Like, I need 10 grand. She's like, 10 grand's cheap. Like, I can do 10 grand to pat you on the head. You'll pay it back. Like, and you can write that up. Like, that's easy. So, sky's the limit there. But we haven't found like a rent to own place that makes sense.
That the prices are low enough to make sense, right?
Yeah, as well as they give us the quality of material that we want. So like if we're renting a couch, well, we want it to be a sleeper couch. Or we have a lamp, like we want it to be one with a USB port, and we want it to be touch enabled. So you're waking up, you touch it, it's on, your phone's charging, kind of a thing. So we look at little things like that where it's like you go to those places, your options are you want the red lamp or the blue lamp, and it's like, well, we wanted something else.
Right.
All
Right.
entirely. So
Gotcha. So how do you determine how many can sleep in a property?
Back of the napkin. So if you're just looking at a property online,
Yeah.
2 per bedroom and then 2 in the living room if you put a sleeper couch. So if you're just guessing, like, okay, if you're just trying to run numbers, 4-bedroom house, calculate that way. And then when you go see the property, see if there's anything that would make that impossible. So if there's a tiny room that you could only fit a twin bed in, that's only one person. Or if the living room, you're like, oh, I don't think we should do a sleeper couch in this living room, then you might have to put a trundle bed in a different room. But that's just kind of a good back of the napkin.
Mm-hmm.
And then think about who you're serving. Are you serving like big families that have a lot of kids? Because a lot of kids and all of them have their own bed, even their like 3-year-olds, is super fun. And you'll be, rewarded financially for that.
Mm-hmm.
So
we like trundles more than bunk beds.
Trundles are better.
What's a trundle?
So a trundle is kind of a regular height twin bed with a bed that's like almost on the floor on wheels that pulls out underneath.
Oh, okay, I've seen those. Okay.
Yeah.
Because then if you have 2 adults that end up in the twin beds, then they aren't.
It's
Like-
not childish.
Yeah, you're not rocking and rolling all night.
I take the top. You
Yeah.
Yeah. So we
Oh,
always
that's a big
prefer that for the flexibility.
Right.
And there's not a cost difference, so go for that.
And like if you think, so like for example, the unit I mentioned in Bountiful, it was 3-bedroom. We're like, that's way too big. We made one room into an office, and we've not had an issue. It still sleeps 6, like, and in that area, suburbia, it's doing great. So.
And so for the number of it can sleep, that's you can raise higher. How do you guys determine your fees in a night rental, or not fees, but how much can you rent per night? How's that?
Demand. You want
For
it. We price it according to demand.
Okay.
You want it as the most someone is willing to pay for that night. And so we price according to holidays, events, weekends. So like Salt Lake, we have Comic-Con, we have Essential Oils Extraordinaire,
doTERRA conference.
doTERRA conference.
Hotel room in Salt Lake books out.
I had no idea.
Those are enormous
huge.
conventions that like we had a 2-bedroom that went for $200 a night that weekend. And
Wow.
if we weren't aware of that conference,
And it averages 70
yeah,
for reference.
so
Wow.
it quadrupled, tripled its cost per night that month. Yeah, like if you're not aware of those things, you lose out. Like so make sure you know that. So there's softwares that do that.
There's one linked on our website. There's a
Wheelhouse.
couple on our website.
Nice.
Wheelhouse, Price Labs are a couple of them, but
Yeah.
we have
Great.
reviews of those there.
We use Price Labs. We've liked it and its automation. But it helps you do the events, know when the events are coming up, and it can even take it into account like weather, like certain
Wow.
weather could prove. Like if it snows, you better bet we're getting bookings up in our resort towns, ski resort towns. And
That's
it's
right.
like they see the snow, they're like, "Yep, I'm going up." Like weekend trip with the boys, like,
Yeah.
and so we'll fill up like that. We'll see that after a snowstorm sometimes, and so
But as far as a basic, look at the comparables, look what else is out there, and compare your property to theirs. And then there's trial and error. Use pricing software. It's $15 a month, and it's worth every penny. Some charge like a percentage, but again, it's worth every penny because one booking like that, where you charge 70, you could have charged 250. Or the
Worth it.
poor guys
Oh,
that
yeah.
the Super Bowl, they charge their regular rates, and they could have charged $2K a night. Yeah, that hurts.
$50 a night place goes for $2K a night.
No
Yeah.
joke.
Yeah.
That's how it goes for
Wow.
Super Bowl, Olympics, things like that. So use pricing software, look what's out there, and look how much better you are than them, and then adjust. Your second year operating a unit, you should always do better than your first because no system's perfect, and if you're continually bettering it, you'll make more money the second year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you also like we also look at if it hasn't booked. So if there's a booking next week that's open, there's a day available, we'll drop that price.
Mm.
Like we want it filled because
Right.
if it's not filled, that's money lost.
Yeah.
And so even if you fill it below the cost for that night, like if your rent is $900 and it's a 30-day month or a 30-month
Day.
30
30-day month.
30 days
We
a
all know
month.
what you mean.
Yeah, $30 a night pays for your rent. Say you have $100 in utilities, so it's like $33 a night will pay everything. And if you have a night that's available like tomorrow, even if it's lower than $33, you're still subsidizing that. Like you'll
That's a lot.
you'll win on the weekends, you may lose on the weekdays. Like, but you want to make sure that it's filled. You want that's how the
Some money is better than no
yeah,
money.
that's how the airlines do it. Like they'll drop tickets below cost to fill a seat. So
They got it
That's
nailed
awesome.
down. And
Yeah,
all of this
geez.
is all of the resources and all the research that you've done is on the website, right?
Yeah. Well, not my whole brain, but I try to offer
A bunch.
I try to offer as much free value as I can. I wish I knew. I wish that I bought the right stuff the right time, the first time.
yeah, and you can reach out. Like we're
Yeah,
We're
and ask
open
questions
books.
as well.
like we won't say no. So
That's good.
That's nice.
So what other ways can, or well, let me ask you this. So what has been some of your, in real estate, some of your biggest successes and biggest failures?
Ooh.
If you want to share, you don't have to share anything you want to
I
share.
don't know. Biggest success. I love our little duplex, our first buy, because we were stupid. We had no idea what we were doing, but it is bomb. Like we do have.
How much do we make? People want to know numbers.
Ooh,
Mhm.
we're probably making like $2,500 a month on that right now. A little
We
duplex.
paid $194,000 for it.
Yeah, so it's cash flowing great. The bottom we have an anchor tenant, a long-term tenant in the basement, and then we have a short-term rental upstairs because that's our jam, and yeah, and we love it because we learned all of the hard lessons. It might be our worst, it might be our biggest failure too.
Well,
But no, just the fact that we went in knowing so little and it turned out so well, we were extraordinarily blessed.
that's
Like
awesome.
I look at that one and I'm like, wow, we did something right because we acted, and even if it flopped flat on its face, we would have still learned the same lessons, which would have been great, and we would have still been where we're at today. So I'm not scared of so that's a big win for
Big
me.
win.
I like
So
that one.
I'm trying to think of a biggest failure. We haven't lost money in real estate yet. So everyone knock on wood for us here.
Sorry.
My mic is bouncing.
Sorry.
But probably that I can think of in this, if people have lost money in real estate, they will scoff at this. But our biggest loss was probably getting too attached to properties in the beginning. We would walk through something and we'd be like, oh my gosh, this is the best, and this is good, this corner is going to be a breakfast nook, and this, and everyone's going to love it. And we were planning on flipping it. Like, we shouldn't have that attachment to a
Yeah.
house. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you
Like,
emotionally attached to the property. Yeah.
yeah,
All
like
of them.
to a ridiculous extent where we're like, after they've said no, we're not interested in selling, or it's been sold to someone else, we're like, oh, maybe we can buy it the second time around. Just stupid. Like,
I still love.
idiotic.
There's
There's
still
a property we would still
There's
buy.
still
still
some
a
out there.
property I am
We have-
emotionally attached to.
We're not completely fixed from that yet.
And it's a dorky little property. It's
It is.
2-bed, 1-bath, like dorky little
I
property.
know. I would still buy it
Um,
again too.
But I'd overpay for it.
Yeah.
Overpaid
Like,
for
I would
it.
say it probably took us 2.5 years where we weren't obsessing over properties, and that sounds so stupid, but we wasted so much time. Just being like, oh, what if we gotten that one? Dwelling on negatives.
Mhm.
Right.
What a mess.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
So and now that kind of leads into my next question. So if you're able to go back in time, we built the time machine back here, and you can go back and you're going to tell the past Havens couple when you first started, if you one word of advice, what would it be? Would it be this kind of what you already touched on, or would it be something else?
No shortcuts.
Yeah, no shortcuts. Don't go with the sketchy plumber because he's cheaper.
Yeah, that's a good one.
This last week, lesson learned.
Buy low,
That's
sell
good.
high. That's another. I think one of my other wins. We bought a property last year for about $150,000, and it's worth like $250 this year.
90K appreciation.
Yeah, so
It's pretty good.
that was very good. And if you appreciated it with a cap rate with our short-term rentals, it would probably be double that. But good luck getting somebody to buy it for that.
Right.
And the next thing, I guess, one more thing is that trust the stuff that doesn't make sense. Like, people are like, oh, if you add value, you make money. And you're like, I give away so much time for free. I'm helping. I'm trying to do these things. I'm hustling. I'm trying to make it work. It might not work right away, but those principles now make so much sense to us. So when people say those things, or it's like, hey, be good, be honest. all
Make a
those-
friend first
make a
and
friend.
do business later.
Yeah, really though, all of those things that everyone tells you in every self-help book and podcast, trust it just a little longer.
That's
Yeah,
good.
When
That's
you
a
go
good one,
networking, just go and try to make like 50 friends and add value to their lives.
Yeah.
Like that's really all it is. Like you go make a friend and then figure out how to make their life better. Add value. Like, hey, you have this, I have this. Let's
I would
make
have
a
rolled
friend.
my eyes at this conversation like a year ago. We are all on our journey because
funny.
we're learning those lessons now.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's funny because it was just a year ago.
Yeah.
And look at where you are now. That's
It's a huge
versus-
progression.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
because 4 years ago you guys started the real estate stuff,
Yeah.
and it
A lot
only
of guess
just
and check
you know,
that those
yeah,
first
now, so.
year. Yeah. A lot of guess and check the first year.
Yeah.
The last 3 years have been good. Still some guess and checking, but we're on a roll now.
Well, I would trust someone more that, let's say they went through a degree, an associate's degree worth of education in something and they've never really done anything, as opposed to someone just kind of learned on the way. I would trust the person that's learned by doing as opposed to someone just reading a book.
Yeah.
Like 10 times.
Yeah.
10 times out of 10. So that's awesome.
I love it.
Cool. So where can we'll have this all information in the show notes, but for those that are listening and watching, where can people get a hold of you?
So
in,
this is
in
me.
person. Come find me.
Yeah.
My address is
I walk on 12th Street every single day.
So our website is home-havens.com. So home, the word, with a dash, and then havens, like multiple safe places. HAVENS. Sorry, I've been on the phone with it too many times, and people are like, "What?" And then we are on Instagram. So our handle there is home_havens. So you can follow us there for kind of more daily tips and tricks and content.
That's awesome.
You're also welcome to email us. It's shorttermrentalmanagement@gmail.com.
Follow me on LinkedIn. Message me. That's
Erin
direct
Havens on
into me.
LinkedIn.
I'll probably respond within the day. So
Better than my response. Or 3 months later, oh shoot.
Yeah, definitely. We're available though, so
That's
reach
awesome.
out using those avenues and we can help you run projections. We run free projections on properties if you're interested in property management. If you just have questions, please reach out as well.
Perfect. Wow. That
It's
is
exciting.
adding value right there.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
That's practicing what you preach right there.
Mm-hmm.
Jenna's like, you'll
I'm
receive
all,
an email tomorrow
yeah.
from me.
I know. Just keep me talking.
Note
As soon as
to
they turn off the
self.
recording, she's like, okay.
I
So
just got an email from her.
yeah, I know.
She just sent
Fast.
it.
Just quick.
Well, we appreciate your time and
Mhm.
you guys sharing your knowledge with us and with our listeners. I hope our listeners learned something because I sure did.
I did, yeah. So did a massive ton.
Uh-huh.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So if you guys are watching this on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe and share. If you're listening to us on any of the formats of podcasts, make sure to give us the highest rating and also share. And we appreciate you guys and we love you. See you.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
We hope you liked that podcast. Stay tuned for next Monday for a brand new podcast and a brand new guest. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share.